there's a reason why I want to start here. This particular... There's a lot of goals on this floor. The best goal is... sorry, I forgot. I will say it's kind of funny how they kind of ran out of stuff sort of to say, considering everything involved here. At least with all the monsters and levels you have to go through, it's like, what else could you possibly say at this point than just get to the next level? Well, apparently they couldn't think of anything else, so they just came up with, hey, you know what? It's important that you have to get to this level, right? Well, I'm glad we have to tell you about it, you know? At least for a 6th time. I don't know, there's a particular credit thing where it does mention this, and I think it's pretty funny how it's actually self-aware enough to do that. At least I think it is, I don't know. Some people may not find it funny, whatever. But I'll say this much. This game is actually not that bad. It's actually pretty fun, at least in my regard, especially for speedrunners, I think. Or at least to some people who want to finish this quickly. And it's pretty good in that regard. But keep in mind, it is a bit difficult to... It is easy to lose power-ups and powers after... Oh, man. Look at that cat butt. Anyway, after you go down, make sure you check the area. There may be enemies standing right next to you. Yeah, you mean those things and that cat butt right there? It isn't Atlas without having to sexualize almost anything that's girl-like. Trust me, I can't be the only one who thinks that butt looks very much weird. Am I? Or am I just that dirty? I don't know. Well, either way, I'm not into that type of stuff, so keep that in mind. Oh, by the way, I realized that killing the night guys, they're harder to kill, but they give off a lot of good, points. At least in terms of stuff. The harder the enemy is to kill, the more stuff you get out of it. Like, oh hey, if you kill off this certain enemy and kill it in a certain amount of time, you'll get a lot out of it. But unfortunately, it's kind of a high risk, high reward for this game. But anyway, oh yeah, here's something that I didn't understand at first. There's a weapon here called double lasers. They face each other. Basically, there's one laser on each side, and they basically sort of block each other out. If you destroy one of them, the laser on the other side keeps firing, and it'll hit you. So the suggested way to do this is hitting them from the side and hitting both of them. So that way you can get whatever items you can get from either side. As you see, it does that. Unfortunately, you can't really get to an item or whatever you shot at that way. It is sort of like, what do you call it? It's a little bit easier to do to some degree. You know, do this sort of quickly because most of the items that are dropped from enemies, or at least from these ones, take a little longer before they just outright disappear. One of the preferred methods of taking care of these things is pushing a boulder in front of the lasers to make sure that each one of them isn't able to fire a laser after one is fired. What the heck am I talking about? Okay, basically it's easier to fire a laser and make sure that it doesn't hit both sides, so make sure to block one side or the other, because it's going to be a little bit easier that way. I will say, the game itself is fun. I like it. Despite, this here is a little bit difficult, but overall I thought the game was alright, which is why I'm doing a series on it. Or at least 3-part series. That's the Dark Zone. Enemies and stuff may be hiding from there, and you can't tell where you're going. I'll say this much about these particular spots. I thought they were, I thought that the game was glitching up. I was like, is this missing texture? What the heck? No, it turns out this was actually a thing. But whatever. But anyway, back onto Atlas in terms of the character designs. Well, not really Atlas in terms of character design. It's more of my opinion on the game as a whole. It's a good game. It certainly is fun. But just like the Angry Video Game Nerd once said, it doesn't really need to be on the Virtual Boy. It could have stand alone on its own as a Game Boy Advance exclusive or something. I don't know. Oh, these things, the Skelepedes. What if you just have to hit their heads fast enough before they get to you, and make sure to hit them consistently. If you do, they give off good, stuff. Like, they drop a good amount of stuff. They also fire bullets out of their faces. So keep that in mind and avoid their heads somewhat, at least to some degree. By the way, there's a reason why I don't usually get some stuff before it happens. It's purely because I didn't notice that potion there. Some of the stuff blends into the background and not just, you know, as stuff. There are certain items that can blend into the background in which I don't notice, so keep that in mind. I will say that this particular enemy, though, is kind of annoying, at least in terms of what it does and what it's supposed to be doing. This thing is an invincible tank laser thing. You can't kill it, and you can't, let it hit you, and it doesn't really stop moving. It just fires a direct laser towards your direction, so keep that in mind. The best way to get past them is just to keep moving forward. This one is the easiest out of the levels I've been through so far. This one looks difficult, but really it isn't. It's pretty easy in terms of just walking straight, basically. That's basically what it is. Literally, that's all it is. Just have to keep walking straight, and you're done. Oh, these things, the Tiki heads, or the Easter Island heads. Fire breathers. Really original names. They spit fire. Could you have guessed that? You know, by their name, Fire Breather? I'm pretty sure you couldn't. Anyway. Sorry, but these things kind of annoyed me a lot during my playthrough, mainly because I kept on running into them. I think. Either that or they just really annoy me about their actions. Like, man, it's like, these things take forever in order to stop firing their stupid lasers or flames. And not just because they, like, not just because of, this boss in particular is annoying, but, it's not just whenever the game slows down that they fire slowly, it just takes a while before they even retract their fire things. But, let's take a look. Let's see. So that's my issue with them. Now this boss is annoying for a lot of different reasons. Well, for one, I lost to it pretty easily. Second of all, the whole thing is invincible. The whole body of it is invincible except for one part. Its eyes. By the way, if it hits you with those special beams, you are paralyzed for a few seconds. All of its body parts is invincible except for its eye. And its eyes only open at certain parts. And whenever it does this particular pose, you can't even hit it when it's ready to fire its special beam at you. And it may be like, oh hey, why don't you stay under the thing and just try and shoot it from there? Well, I've sort of tried doing that, but at the same time, the stupid thing just doesn't, stay high enough for me to be in this particular position, because it moves erratically, at least in terms of how exactly it moves. I've tried to lure it up there a couple of times, but it doesn't really follow my directions that way too well. And when it does do that, it just outright, whenever I want to hit it or try to lure it away, it usually has its arms out. And its arms can hurt you, so keep that in mind. Those stupid arms can hurt you a lot. So, anytime you want to try and fire at this thing, I suggest trying to stay near the bottom of the screen, I guess. But even then, you get really cornered by this thing because you don't want to touch it and you don't want to let its bullets hit you. So guess what? You try to keep away, but unfortunately it gets closer to you. I even tried to lure it a couple places, but it doesn't seem to follow you unless you're really patient, which I don't have time for that. As you can tell, you don't really have enough time in certain boss fights at this point, so really it doesn't really help anyway. By the way, if you're hit with those bullets, it's just 10 seconds remove, but if you run into the boss and are hit directly, with a physical attack, with whatever, their tentacles, whatever, you get damage for like 90 points. No, actually 30 points, I think. Which is even less time, taken away from you. Which is a little bit unfair, but at the same time, I get it. You're not supposed to be up and close to the boss. And I failed. Yep. And this is where I sort of just, well, not quit, just stopped recording and waited until I got to the end of this particular boss before I showed it, at least showed me killing it. Sorry you didn't see me actually beat it, but I kind of was just angry at that stupid boss. And I learned that, yeah, I should keep all my special stars until the very, very end. You can collect a lot of stars, actually, weirdly enough. My suggestion, when you finally get to the final boss, like the very bottom, don't waste all your stars on the first stage, because there's always a second stage to some final bosses. Anyway, this particular level isn't too bad, it's more machine-based. So keep that in mind as things go on. More things are robotic and or technology-based. There's more lasers and more tanks, I think. At least I think in my mind there are. But there are still monsters. In fact, I think we are going to be introduced to another monster that isn't really related to this place. Like, that's a weird thing about this game. This game is kind of odd at that point, because it's like, oh hey, each stage level sort of has certain things that sort of make sense or have a theme to it. Like the last place, the last place was some type of forest, and it had a what was the first boss? It was a skull, right, or something, right? I think. I forget what it was. Dang it. Okay, basically, there's some stages with certain things, and some of the enemy bosses at the very ends of each stage kind of make sense, don't really. Like the Dragon's Den, that was where we were. Well, guess what? The Dragon's Den had a snake. No, a spider as its final boss, not a dragon. And yeah, look at this, an angel in a machine-like city. That makes somewhat sense. Like, I'm pretty sure the name of this particular level was Metallic something. You'd think they'd have more robots, but in the Dragon Den they had more robots than you'd think. And I'm not counting these tiki heads as robots because they're stone. I'm pretty sure. They look stone, they don't look robotic. Oh, by the way, to kill off those angel things, you have to hit off their flailing mace things when they come at you, or try to hit you. And in doing so, it'll force the thing to go back at them, like that, see, and kill them. So keep that in mind. So you know, if you ever deal with those things. Whew. Let me guess. Hey Jack, you know what? I don't know too much about this area, so I'm not going to say anything for a while. Don't worry. If I come up with anything, I'll let you know. Yeah. They knew they couldn't come up with any more stuff for her to talk about. At least for this level. Ugh. I will say I was trying to kill off one of these Spectre guys because they themselves are pretty useful in killing. Like, what do you call it? The thing with them is that if you kill them, at least try to kill them, they're pretty useful in that regard. Oh yeah, I was wondering like why that didn't work at first time, but now I realized, oh right, there's two lasers. Whenever the double lasers are around, you know there's two lasers, because it's in the namesake, double lasers. Double rainbow, so intense. What does it mean? No, I'm just kidding. An old meme. Ah man, those were the good old days, weren't they? I'll be genuinely serious when I say this, but I actually did hear about the double rainbow thing. That was my first technical viral video meme thing I've ever heard out of YouTube or anything related to it. Everything else was like nothing really too much. I remember Angry Video Game Nerd a couple of times, but I never watched his stuff a lot, only snippets. Because, well, we didn't have the best of internet connections. And I know what you're thinking. This was like in 2005. The internet wasn't that big at the time. So, you know, I'm just saying, like, the internet as a whole back then wasn't really, what do you call it, in its greatest of infancies, but it certainly was new at the time. So that was my first ever, like, introduction to the whole meme concept, I guess. But you know what? I found the whole thing of like double rainbow, so intense. Not really funny. I just found it weird. In fact, I thought like the video I think it was my dad that actually showed me that video. At least I think it was him. Like I'm assuming because like it's been a while since I've actually remember actually seeing that video. But anyway, I think my dad showed it to me, I think, or maybe a friend of his, and I thought that was my dad talking, something like that. Like it was like, oh hey, your dad was kind of like something or another back then, so we kind of just made fun of him for doing this particular thing, blah blah blah. I don't know, I could be wrong, but well, at least in regards to who showed it to me. But I was wrong in that regard. Because it wasn't my dad, it was actually just a video. Oh, these things. So, you know, I just wanted to tell you all that my first ever meme was the double rainbow, and I just saw them on the internet. I think it might be my first internet video ever, actually. I don't know, maybe I'm discounting the Angry Video Game Nerd because I only watched some bits of it, and even then, what do you call it? I'm pretty sure they don't really... It technically does count, but I don't know how well of it counts as. Whew. I don't know. Like, it's been a while since I've ever seen anything related to the Angry Video... Well, not really. Anything in regards to old viral videos, because, like, the internet was really, really old. And even then, I can remember the Angry Video Game Nerd, but even then, like, I think I saw it before I ever watched the video. Maybe, I don't know. This is like a lot of stuff like I can't really remember because this was all like when I was very, very young. Because most of the time when I was like very young, I just remember like little bits of whatever happened in my life, not really remembering anything. I don't know, it just feels weird. One thing I want you to keep in mind as we go through this is that some of these puzzles require you to do specific stuff. So this one level was a little bit longer in that regard, but it was pretty good. One thing I do want to point out real quick was those Cyclops. Anytime they smack the ground, you are basically stunned for a bit. So keep that in mind as we keep moving forward, because most of the time they're going to be a bit of a pain in the buttocks. By the way, that teleporter for some reason just teleports you up one level. I'm not sure what it's supposed to do. But I will say, if you get through a level specifically at a fast amount of time, you get a bonus time stuff. So keep that in mind. Dang it. Kinda upset that I kept on getting hit and all that. At least I thought it was kinda stupid. See, this was the level that kinda got me stuck a bit, because I was like, okay, what am I supposed to be doing? Like, at this point, I had no idea what I was doing at all. And I thought I was doing alright at first, but I was like, oh no, I'm starting to lose, oh no. But at least the game is forgiving in some regards. Not fully, but at least some. At least I learned from my mistakes, at least. I thought I did, at least. But I will admit one thing about the internet as a whole. Not the internet. My experience with this game, it was fun, honestly, it was. But it was a lot more difficult than I anticipated, at least. I'll give credit to the developers of this game. They designed it pretty well enough. Not the greatest, but pretty decent. Oh, and here's where the Maui heads sort of get a little bit annoying. Sort of. Not much, but still. At least in regards to everything else involved. By the way, yes, I am in fact just like running straight into it. Because I'm stupid. Not really, I just thought to myself, I want to get this over with, and I thought the final level was kind of under me. I'm kind of dumb in that regard, because I thought like, oh hey, could have been able to at least get through most of it. Thankfully, a couple of these poltergeists are here, so thankfully I'm able to get a good amount of time off these guys. At least I think so. I think it likes us. Yeah, sure it does. Nah, by the way, I was thinking of a game. Sorry, I was thinking of like the Game Grumps for a second. But let me just talk more about the Angry Video Game Nerd actually, because like I don't remember like actually knowing what episode I ever saw of him or any of his stuff. Because like I said, I think my first viral video, or technically introduction to the internet, was the Double Rainbow guy. Maybe, maybe not, I could be wrong. Overall, it really all depends on what exactly was it that I actually saw or remember seeing. Because a lot of like the internet at the time, at least around the 2000s, early 2000s, or late 2000s, it was really starting to become nothing really everyone would look at. In fact, the only thing I looked at the internet was for gaming, which was, you know, internet online games like Flash games, Flash stuff. Heck, even like places like Cartoon Network and what's it called? Some other stuff like other websites like Nickelodeon. Anytime they offered their free service of the internet and they said like, oh hey, if you come onto our website and play free games, you get a free something. Or no, not really just free something, you just play free games, that's about it. Which, in all honesty, makes some sense, but at the same time, I don't know, I didn't have issues with it. I'll tell you this much about the internet as a whole back then. It was slow, and it's a lot better now, but even then some issues might be arisen because of it. Well, not because of it, but because of certain other people with the internet at the time. As y'all know, I'm kind of passionate about the whole net neutrality thing, and I've tried to keep my mind at least optimistic on what I think the future of the internet holds. Unfortunately, a good amount of it just doesn't feel like as if, oh hey, it's going to be resolved pretty easily and we're going to be doing fine. Well, I'm worried about it. So keep that in mind as things happen. Be careful. If you get stunned by these things while on those spikes, you're going to get really messed up. At least that's what I think would happen. Thankfully, these guys just stop in front of you before they, what do you call it, smash down. So that's something at least. One little thing I will say about a video game as a whole, as my gaming thoughts as a whole, or at least like when I first started playing games. I only ever played like internet games online as a kid. That was my first adaptation to PC gaming, at least. After that, it was like, okay, what else am I supposed to do? Well, not much. You're just supposed to play games. Well, and then after that, I figured out what YouTube was later on, like in the early 2010s, and that's really where I got to see everyone. But before that, like in 2008, I did see one video of the Angry Video Game Nerd, and that's about it. That's all I saw of his. It was like, oh hey, this guy curses a lot, and my parents wouldn't like this. Yeah, I could watch it and think it'd be pretty funny, but that's about it. I don't know. By the way, this boss was hard in regards to everything else. I was like panicking. I didn't know how to do this. Plus, I was kind of slow in regards of having to do this. And I know, like, you may be thinking, well, Josh, didn't you say you were supposed to keep your some of your points here so that way you don't lose them or stuff? Well, yeah, I said that, but unfortunately, I didn't follow up on my whole ideals and just bum rush this guy. But anyway, I'll see y'all next time for the next video. Until then, sayonara, my bots. I'll talk more about the AVGN later.